one of these takes will work. One of them will work. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It has been a minute. I've had a super hectic spring. There's been a lot of really major changes happening in my life. I moved to Toronto permanently, finally. So I have a new apartment, which I'm not currently in now. I'm in like a weird medieval hotel, which is a whole other story. But I will show you guys my apartment once it's set up and ready. And in the meantime, I just wanted to get back and make a video about something that I've been meaning to make a video about for a really long time. So when we talk about attachment theory, we talk a lot about things like love languages and how to give and express love to other people. And I'm guessing that most of you who are here are already fairly familiar with the love languages, just because most of you are giant typology nerds and the love languages is a pretty common system. If you're not, go Google the 5 love languages by Gary Chapman. There's a really short, easy book that he released that gives you an overview of them, or you can probably find like a million YouTube videos where people explain it to you really quickly. I'm not going to do too much talking about what the 5 love languages are, solely because I think most of you are already familiar with them. But what I'm going to talk about today is how to apply the 5 love languages to your relationship with yourself. So for a really long time in my life, I kind of hated the term self-love because I didn't really get what it meant. It was kind of like when someone says something and you're like, oh, sorry, I didn't catch that. Can you repeat it? And then they repeat it and you still don't catch it. And then they repeat it again. And by the third time, you're like, I still don't understand, but I can't ask you a third time to repeat yourself. So I'm just going to like nod and like giggle and hope that's an appropriate response. That's how I felt about the entire self-love movement. Like I did not understand at any point what the term self-love actually meant. So I had kind of an aha moment when I realized that the way I think about self-love, or the way that I see it described in the media, is very words of affirmation heavy. So of the 5 love languages, for me, words of affirmation is dead last. It's like way down at the bottom of my stacking. When people give me words of affirmation, I can appreciate that they're being nice to me, but it doesn't really land on me. Like it just kind of feels like it goes in one ear, out the other. So when I hear things like, oh, give yourself positive affirmations, stand in the mirror and give yourself kind words, be kind with your internal dialogue. To me, that doesn't feel like self-love. It feels like that's something I could do, but when I try to test it out, it just kind of feels shallow. And I realized it's because that is the love language that I value the least. So when I started thinking about self-love through the lens of love languages, my top one being quality time, it completely and totally changed the way that I thought about that term. And it also completely and totally changed the way that I approached self-love very, very much for the better. So today I'm going to go over the 5 love languages and how we can apply the 5 love languages to our relationship with ourselves. I'm going to go not in any particular order. I wrote some notes down on my phone like usual, so I'm just going to go through what I wrote down in the order that I wrote it down. So the first one we're going to talk about is words of affirmation. So again, this one is not huge for me, but it's still one I try to use just because it's, give yourself all the love you can give yourself. And a big game changer for me when it came to words of affirmation as applied to the self was learning to affirm myself using a growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset. So a really big problem that I have with a lot of words of affirmation advice that's out there is that you're supposed to give yourself affirmations, and maybe this is just like the whole manifesting movement, which I'm not super into. But you're supposed to give yourself words of affirmation that are like, oh, I'm successful, I'm loved, I'm rich. But a lot of those things your brain just doesn't believe. Like your brain is going to reject information that it thinks is categorically untrue. And there's definitely a gray area there where it's like, okay, there are certain things where you could believe them. So you're reaching a little bit, but it could work. But then there are other things where I really think that if you put too much space between what you believe to be true and what you're telling yourself, your inner critic's going to start going off and going, oh, how could you even think that? How could you pretend that you're already successful in that way or whatever it is, or that you're worthy of love? Or if there's something your brain really wants to reject, it will reject it if you continuously say it over and over. And it might even criticize you for like setting an affirmation that it thinks is stupid, which is always how it was for me when I would try to set those affirmations when it was all the rage. So what I like to do with affirmations, if and when I use them, is give myself affirmations that acknowledge where I'm at, but that set me on a better trajectory. So on one end of the spectrum, we have, I'm uber successful and I have the life I want. And on the other end of the spectrum, there's that inner critic that's going, oh, I'm a failure at everything and I don't have anything I want. And right in the middle, there's this beautiful opportunity for you to tell yourself, I am heading in the direction of what I want, or I am getting myself ready to go for this opportunity, or I am building myself into a person who can love and receive love in a really healthy way. And if you can learn to give yourself affirmations that open up little opportunities for you, rather than just trying to trick your brain into thinking that you're somewhere that you're not, you're gonna start seeing those opportunities everywhere. Let's say you have an affirmation around having healthy relationships. Every time you're in an argument or a fight, if you're repeatedly giving yourself that affirmation, I am building skills for healthy relating, you're going to see opportunities for healthy relating. You're going to remind yourself, I'm in the process of building this skill. And then you're going to seek out opportunities to keep building that skill, as opposed to just going into an argument, let's say, and going, oh, well, now I'm in an argument, so I must not be good at healthy relationships, so that is off the table. So giving yourself that opportunity rather than trying to convince yourself you're already there is going to be really huge for words of affirmation when it comes to self-love. Okay, so the next one is quality time. Quality time is by far my top love language, and I can immediately start speaking to this in terms of pet peeves, because I know when someone is not giving me the quality time that feels good to me, what's wrong. So what's wrong when someone's not giving me quality time is often that they're distracted. It drives me crazy when I'm hanging out with someone and they're like checking their phone a lot, or they're kind of giving me responses where I can tell they're not really listening or paying attention. And I really, really love having very full-on experiences with people where we're really engaged in whatever we're doing or whatever we're talking about. That makes me feel really close and bonded to someone. And my entire relationship with myself changed when I realized that I don't often give myself that form of quality time. So living in the year 2021 and all of the years that have preceded it in the recent past, we live in a world that's very interconnected, very distraction heavy, and it's really, really hard to give yourself completely uninterrupted time. So I realized that when I'm like off the clock, I'm not working, I'm not doing anything, or there's nothing that I should be doing, almost always I have this dialogue running in the back of my head that's like, oh, you could be working, you could be doing this, what's happening tomorrow, what's happening the next day. My brain is very rarely, if ever, solely focused on giving myself quality time and enjoying it. So I imagine this kind of as, what if I had someone sitting next to me who I was trying to spend quality time with, and every 3 minutes they were like, oh, well, should we do this? Should we go to bed? It's getting late. Should we do this? What about that work that you have to do? What about that thing tomorrow? Should we, here's a problem coming up down the line. Should we focus on that? If I had someone who I was hanging out with who was giving me the kind of chatter that is often going on inside of my own head when I'm trying to relax or enjoy myself, I would be so frustrated with that person, because that would not be quality time. It would be time, but it would not be time that felt meaningful or growing or like we're nurturing our relationship. So I realized this year that if I want to nurture my relationship with myself, I have to give myself really good, really intensive, really full-on quality time. And what that means is giving myself time to rest, to recharge, to do activities that I enjoy without the possibility of doing anything else. I started being strict with myself about not allowing myself to have anything else on the table. So what that means is that if I have a day of work and I plan to finish at 3 p.m., I now tell myself, even if you feel good to go at 3 p.m. and you want to keep working on something else that you have to do next week or whatever, you literally have to stop. You absolutely have to. It's like a job where they make you clock out, and I'm self-employed, so this can be tricky for me. I'm going to think of it as a job where I literally clock out, and then I have to spend time with myself guilt-free, where I'm not allowed to think about anything that I should be doing or could be doing. I have to give myself that quality time. And when I tell you that doing that has completely changed my relationship with myself, I could not be more serious. Allowing myself, forcing myself to take time to rest, spend time with myself, not pester myself about what I could or should be doing, has completely eliminated all of these negative habits that I used to have. I used to drink all the time, overeat, have crazy insomnia, because I wasn't giving myself quality time or self-love. So I was going to all of these crutches that made me feel better instead of having an actual relationship with myself that was nurturing. And I really recommend that if quality time is your love language, take time every single day if you can. Every single day, even if it's only half an hour, just clear out time where you will not feel any guilt or any sense of distraction, and you will just force yourself, if you have to, force yourself to focus only on whatever it is that helps you relax or unwind or get into a flow state. It's going to be so beneficial for your mental health that overall in your life, you will see the impacts everywhere. So yeah, treating yourself like a friend who you wouldn't pester every 10 minutes to do something else if you're hanging out is kind of the only way you give yourself quality time. And you have to be strict about it, but it is so worth it. Next one, acts of service. This one's gonna be a bit tricky for me to go over because acts of service is my second last, so I'm not as clear on it. But with acts of service, I think that what's really important, if this is your love language, is making sure that you are just showing up for yourself. So what I see a lot of the time is people who have acts of service as their dominant love language or as one of the love languages in their top stacking, they can be very focused outwardly on helping other people and giving other people what they need. And they aren't always as strict about giving themselves what they need. Again, because love languages we often think of interpersonally. There is this, I forget if it's like an inspirational talk or whatever, but it's called Eat the Frog. And I forget what the story behind it is. There's some parable about some guy who had to eat a frog, so he did it right away. I don't know. Google it. You'll find it. They forced me to watch this when I was in training for a sales role, which is the worst job I've ever had in my life. But anyways, the moral of the story was, if you have something really hard to do in the day, do it first thing. Wake up and immediately do that thing. Do not let yourself do anything else. Get the worst thing off your plate right away so that the rest of the day you're not plagued by the stress and anxiety and gnawing thoughts in the back of your mind about how you have to do that. And I really find that when I approach my own acts of service in that way, it completely changes the way that I show up for myself. Because when you show yourself, first thing in the morning, I'm gonna do this thing that's gonna make my day easier, that is a huge act of self-love. That is you saying, I'm gonna remove this thing off of the plate of my future self, and I'm gonna give my future self the gift of being able to go about their day knowing that they don't have to deal with that stress throughout it. And I think that if you can get in the habit of doing the hardest thing you have to do that day, the most laborsome or annoying thing you have to do first thing in the morning, you're gonna build an awesome sense of micro accountability with yourself. So I don't know whether that's doing a work task, whether it's doing a workout if you're someone who wants to work out but really doesn't like it, or if it's calling a friend who you've been putting off calling, whatever it is that is gonna give you a sense of anxiety, and you'll know in your body, you can check in with yourself, you'll feel it. Feel the thing that makes you clench up the most and kind of inhibits your energy the most, get that out of your way. Give yourself the gift of being more energetically free after you've done that task and more free mentally to think about what you actually want to think about in the day by getting that frog off your plate right away. So the opposite of self-love when it comes to acts of service is procrastination. When you have this unending list of things that you don't want to do that you're putting off, you are absolutely telling yourself, I don't care about you enough to get these things done so that you can have the quality time or whatever it is with yourself that you really want. So finding a process and then being strict with yourself about it that allows you to get those really annoying things done quickly and easily and efficiently builds accountability with yourself. And it's giving your mind proof, I love you, I'm taking care of you, look at what I did for you right at the beginning of the day. So I just want to pause here and say that all of these things are about building self-accountability. So just like in a relationship with someone else, you have to build this sense of rapport, you go to someone and they're kind to you, or they show up for you, or they do you a favor, and over time you build this positive relationship where you think of that person and go, I know I can trust them, I can rely on them, I feel good around them. You need to build that same relationship with yourself by loving yourself in a language that you recognize. So all of these things are really means of building self-accountability when it comes to the relationship that you have with yourself. Okay, gifts. I have a lot to say about gifts. Gifts is definitely either my second or third love language. I'm not sure if it's higher or lower than touch for me. But I think that gifts is a really misunderstood love language. A lot of people think it's really shallow. And here's the thing, gifts can be shallow, but so can words of affirmation, so can touch, so can quality time. Any of these love languages can be done shallowly and badly. And what a shallow and badly done gift looks like is spending money or other resources on someone in a way that is thoughtless and not intentional. So a really bad gift is something that you didn't put much thought into, that you just kind of threw money at, and the other person can tell, this isn't really catered to me. It's just you felt like you had to give a gift or something. A really good gift is a gift that conveys the message, I see you, I notice what your needs are, and I want to help you fill a need in a very intentional way. I picked something out for you, and whether that's a practical need or an emotional need, right? Because a really good gift can also just fulfill the emotional need of let's say you give someone a necklace or a piece of jewelry where every time they look at it, they remember your relationship and feel really loved. That's an emotional needs gift. And that might feel really, really meaningful to someone who has gifts as a love language. So my favorite thing about giving gifts is noticing over the course of a year, like let's say we're leading up to, my family celebrates Christmas, leading up to Christmas, I'll write things down over the course of a year where I'm like, this person could really use this, or this person seems really stressed out about this problem, or this person's really excited about this thing. And I'll keep a running list of things that are going on in the lives of the people I love. And then as we get closer to Christmas, I'll start thinking about, okay, which items could I give them that would either show my support for what they're excited about, alleviate a problem, or just show them I really see that this is going on for you. And then finding a gift that fulfills that need and shows that person I see you, I see what you're going through, and I'm here to support you in any way that I can, is what a good gift is all about. Like, that's the end goal of the gifts love language, is to just show people you're seen, you're understood, and you're supported in some sort of practical way. So when it comes to giving gifts to ourselves, we have to apply that exact same strategy. It can't just be, I mindlessly spent on myself, which, don't get me wrong, I love doing. I'm actually very bad for impulse buying. That's a problem that I have. But that is not a pure expression of the gifts love language, right? Just buying everything you want and then going into debt or ending up with all of this junk that doesn't feel that meaningful to you. That's a bad expression of the gifts self-love language. So what you have to do if you want to give yourself true gifts is really start paying attention and noticing, where are your own needs? What things are you really excited about? What are you working towards? Which areas are you kind of struggling in that you could use a little bit of practical help in? And then you need to start budgeting and being very specific, deliberate, and intentional about spending your money or your resources in ways that fill those needs for yourself. And this sounds easy, but I really think very few people are this intentional about the way that they spend their resources. So if gifts is one of your love languages and you're squirreling away all of your money on ordering Uber Eats or doing things that aren't really making your life that much better, some people, Uber Eats does make their life better. I'm one of them. But a lot of us are doing at least some form of mindless spending. And if we were to focus that resource, money is just one of the resources that we have, on figuring out what we actually need that's going to make our lives considerably better, and then giving ourselves that. So maybe budgeting for a course we want to take, or some at-home gym equipment, or a kitchen item that ups our cooking game if that's something you like doing for self-care. Making sure that you can be intentional about the gifts that you're giving yourself, and then actually learning to receive that gift is going to make a huge difference. Because there's two parts to gift giving, right? One is giving the gift, and the other is that the person we're giving it to, they have to receive it and let it in and feel it and go, oh, thank you, I recognize that this is a show of love from someone, right? And if gifts is your love language, that probably comes naturally to you. When someone gives you a gift, you know how to receive it and appreciate it. But if you're not receiving and deeply appreciating and recognizing the gifts you give yourself as an act of self-care and self-love, then you're not getting the most out of your own love language. Literally write yourself a thank you letter for it, if that helps. Treat the gifts you give yourself with the same amount of care, respect, and attention as you would give to a gift that someone else gave you, and you're gonna start getting it through your mind that you're being intentional about the ways that you're making your own life better. And again, over time, that's gonna clue your brain into, I'm giving myself love, I'm giving myself respect, I'm giving myself care, and you're gonna start building accountability with yourself. And that's a lot better than just spending mindlessly on yourself and then having these inner critic thoughts about it. So last love language is touch. I have been doing a lot of work on my attachment style lately, and some of the Facebook communities that I'm a part of that are related to attachment style talk a lot about the love languages and how you can give yourself what you need through the lens of the 5 love languages. And everyone always gets stuck on touch because they're like, oh, the other ones I can kind of get. But how do you give yourself the touch that you need beyond the obvious? And I was stuck on this for a while too. But here's what I think. Touch as a love language is not just about hugging or like giving physical affection to people. It's about knowing that someone else is respecting the relationship they have with your body. So when someone touches us in a loving and safe way, we feel great. And when they touch us in an unsafe or harmful way, we feel bad. But not a lot of us think about that in relation to how we treat our own bodies. So when we're treating our own bodies with care and respect and love and nurturance, that is fueling our touch love language. And when we treat our bodies with neglect, with distaste, when we put things into our body that make our body feel bad, that is taking away from our self-love language of touch, right? Because it's all about the respect that we're showing to our physical bodies. And there are also some very obvious things around this, right? So my partner's love language is touch, and her apartment is like a cloud. Like everything you could sit on is super fluffy and cushiony, and there's weighted blankets. Like everything is perfectly catered to the sensory needs of someone who has touch as a love language. And that's a really great way to approach it as well. So looking at the clothes you wear, are they super comfortable? Anything that touches your physical body that you put on your skin is touch. So touch is probably my second. I really love to take long baths where I'll get a bath bomb that feels really nice on my skin. I like really cushiony beds. I like bathrobes that are snuggly and warm. Anything that you put on your body is touch, but also the way that you treat your body is touch. So if you are living an active lifestyle, if you're putting food in your body that nourishes you, if you're taking the time to stretch and to really treat your muscles and your body with respect, your body is going to register that as an act of self-love because you're showing yourself, I respect, nurture, and I'm keeping my body safe from harm. And that is absolutely, in my opinion, one of the greatest things you can do for self-accountability. So many of us neglect the relationships that we have with our bodies. We might tell ourselves through affirmation, I love my body, but if we're not proving it to ourselves, if we're not doing things, and whatever that is completely up to you, that make our body feel loved, cared for, and respected, doesn't matter how many affirmations you say, your body's not gonna believe you because your body knows what you're doing to it. And I have been the worst for this in my life. If there is a person who has abused their body in every way possible, it is me. So there's no shame, no judgment there. But that's also how I know that the power of taking that control back and treating your body in a way that it believes is loving and respectful and caring, not just through words, but through actions on a daily basis, can be revolutionary for your self-esteem. Revolutionary for your sense of self-trust, revolutionary for the relationship that you have with yourself. And the same goes for any of these love languages. But I think that touch is one we misunderstand because it's not just about touch from others. It's about the relationship with the self, with the body and physical space, and how we treat our body in relation to our physical environment. Okay, that is all of the love languages. All of these are just kind of thoughts and things that I've been noting and jotting down as I do attachment work, because this shit is really important. Really, really important. If you don't know how to love yourself in a real way, that will show up everywhere in your life. It will show up in the work you do. It will show up in the relationships you have. It will show up in the way you treat your body and your mind. There is not a substitute for self-love. There just is not one. There are a million second best options that will slowly and consistently destroy your life, but there is no substitution for showing the fuck up for yourself in whatever way you recognize as showing up for yourself. So the first step is learn what you need to give yourself proof that you're showing up for yourself, because you can tell yourself, I love you, I love you, I love you all you want, but if you're treating yourself in a way that is not showing that love to yourself, you're not gonna believe it. Your mind is smart. Your unconscious mind is smart. It doesn't believe affirmations that it knows are not true. But if you start doing the work, showing up for yourself in a way that your mind really recognizes, it's gonna clock that, right? It's, again, like a relationship with another person. You notice if someone says, oh, I'll be there at 5 o'clock, and then they're there at 6, right? You get pissed off. You don't wanna hang out with that person anymore. Same thing happens for yourself. If you're not keeping the promises you make to yourself, that is constantly being clocked inside of your mind. Be as intentional, if not much more intentional, about showing up for yourself in these ways as you would if it were a relationship with someone else. Because if we don't love ourselves, we A, don't get anywhere, and B, we just become holy reigning terrors in the lives of others, trying to get all our sense of self-worth out of them. So this is not just a gift for you, it's a gift for everyone else around you who is gonna benefit from you being a healthy and happy and self-loving person. So I'm very curious, let me know in the comments what your love languages are and what you intend to do this week, starting today, to start giving yourself that time. So I'm gonna clock off at 3 today, and I'm gonna spend some time with friends, and I'm not allowed, I have thought boundaries around what I'm allowed to think of in that time. I'm not allowed to think of my work. I'm not allowed to think of the things I have to do. I'm just gonna be fucking present. And I'm gonna do some version of that every single day, probably for the rest of my life, even if it's only 10 minutes. Whatever time I have, I'm gonna be really intentional and present about. So tell me what your plan for the week is in the comments, and I will see you guys again soon. Also, oh my God, almost forgot. If you are an ENFP or an INFP personality type, I run 6 week soul bootcamp courses specifically for you, where we talk a ton about how to love and care for and show up authentically for yourself. So if that feels like a gift that you would love to give yourself or someone else, see what I did there? You can go to my website at www.heidipreeb.com and you can find those courses there. And now I will truly see you guys next time.